Indigenous peoples from all over the globe have a rich history and culture. Their traditions have been passed down for generations, and their culture, through various trials and tribulations, have proven to be resilient in the face of near constant adversity. While native culture has certainly been impacted by outside cultures, its practice of universal, natural ideals has allowed it to influence other cultures and subcultures. Rock and metal music are some of the most expressive genres of music to surface in the past couple of decades, so it would stand to reason that one of the most expressive multicultures in the world would develop such a close relationship with rock and metal. In this short documentary, we will explore the interplay between the indigenous and the rebellious. Rock music began in the early 50s as a means of expressing mundane concepts via music, including subjects often thought to be taboo, such as sex. Eventually, rock music began to diversify in its messages, and it started to become the anthem of the American subculture in the 60s and 70s. Rock music during this time period began to focus on social injustices and global issues, and in doing so, represented an entire generation of people. The counterculture, known as the hippies, were infamous for their laid-back tendencies. However, in their general attitudes about life, they took inspiration from Eastern spirituality and native culture, focusing on being in perfect harmony with nature and the environment. Thus, the music of the time began to reflect the ideologies that this counterculture championed, such as coexistence with nature and the environment, which they shared with Native Americans. Thus, rock music began becoming more accessible to indigenous groups, and more native bands made their debut in the rock and roll scene. Redbone was founded in 1969 by brothers Pat and Lolly Vegas, who were of mixed Mexican, Yaqui, and Shoshone heritage, hence the name Redbone. Their music was a mix of Cajun and native influences, and thus attracted a large following in the New Orleans area. Eventually, they released a hit number, Come and Get Your Love, which skyrocketed their popularity and put them at number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100.
It's a band that really doesn't need any introduction. You just saw their video. We're going to get into the interview right now. Where did the name Redbone come from?
Redbone's taken from the French dictionary, and it means half-breed. Anyone with native blood, Indian blood in them, no matter where they are on this planet, would be considered a redbone. Because half-breed, of course, is derogatory, so no one wants to be called a half-breed. So Redbone is perfect for our situation, being the first and original Indian rock group. Our roots are Cajun, which a lot of our music shows it. Witch Queen of New Orleans, Maggie. It's got
Crazy
that
Cajun?
Crazy Cajun. It's got that original that Cajun thump, and it's got the Indian heartbeat, that tom, that constant driving thing in the bottom there. That makes our music, unique unto itself, and therefore, we feel that, and we're very happy and proud.
During the late 70s to 90s era, rock and roll gave birth to a new genre of music, heavy metal. Bands like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden pioneered the genre, but eventually new metal subgenres began to form, such as thrash, groove, and death metal. In the late 90s, as metal was falling out of the public eye, the Brazilian groove metal band Sepultura released their sixth studio album, Roots. It was an absolute knockout. Nothing of that type had ever been heard before in the music industry until the release of Roots. The album was most heavily influenced by Brazilian tribal culture, as seen in then frontman Max Cavalera's recount of his meeting with the Xavante tribe.
They were really open-minded. Like, they liked our tattoos, they like our hair. They were really cool. It was kind of a nice interaction with them. It was kind of like what we don't get from society. We got it there because society just looks at us. I travel the world. That's my job. So sometimes I'm sitting in the airport and I notice nobody sit by me. It's like, they're scared. Look at this crazy guy. And I wouldn't want to sit by me either. So society has a prejudice thing that the tribe didn't have it. The tribe did not had any prejudice against us, which was preconceived notions. So it was really cool, man. And I loved the 3 days we spent with them there. It was so cool because there was a couple things that were mandatory. So we had to apply by the rules of the tribe. And one of them was like no drugs and no alcohol, of course, It was one of the rules. And then the other rules was at any point, if they don't like how this thing was going, the whole thing was going to get canceled.
Okay.
And we had to agree with that,
The album was received positively, with papers such as the New York Times, Daily News, and the Los Angeles Times praising the dense fusion of indigenous culture with heavy metal. This can especially be seen in songs such as Rata Mahara and in Sari, with the presence of spiritually significant lyrics and tribal chants. Roots was a masterful example of the powerful interplay between native culture and metal sound. In more recent history, the thrash metal giant Testament was awarded Video of the Year at the American Indian Film Festival for the music video to their song Native Blood. Their vocalist, Chuck Billy, is a Native American from the Pomo tribe, and he grew up in a reservation.
Why I chose this song to be the first song that we're going to offer on New York Rock Exchange is when I wrote this song, I actually beat cancer in 2001, and I actually went back to my Native American roots, and it really helped me and inspired me to get through my illness. And I never really wrote about my heritage, so this was the opportunity that I thought it did so much for my life that I needed to write about it and express myself about it. And growing up with my family coming from a reservation, I just seen struggle of them trying to survive, and always, it's like they never have been heard. They have something to say, but nobody's listening. So the song Native Blood, and if you see the video that we have out there of it, you'll see the struggle of a young child growing up through life, not really saying what he had to say in his mind, and to finally, as an adult, find the power of who he comes from, to speak up for himself and speak up for what his beliefs. And that's why Native Blood was such a strong song, you know, for me to choose and be a part, and I'm glad I can offer it to my fans out there to be a part of it along with me.
The video for their song told the story of a Native American boy who, after being bullied in school for his native blood, grew to accept his culture and became proud of who he was. Their interaction with the Native American community while shooting the video was a beautiful example of the confluence between music and indigenous culture.
In a whimsical way, bring together the entire community, whether it was getting some elders, getting some youngsters. Everybody was there to really pitch in and show their support and for Testament as well as Chuck.
For me, because I haven't touched on a lot of Native stuff in Testament, but this song happened to go back to the roots. 2001, when I got ill, going back to my roots and doing some, as far as Native American aspect of healing myself, it really played a big part in my life. And I think I haven't really tapped in the past as heavily. So I think it's probably about time, it's it's the right time. Everything happens for a reason.
I think Chuck wrote the song Native Blood about Native anybody really, but for the video, Native Americans standing up for what they believe in, what they deserve. And that's kind of the idea we wanted to go with for the video too, was portray Native Americans standing up and fighting for their rights to just be who they are.
The interaction of rock and metal music with native culture is a wonderful thing that can be seen in more than what's just been listed. Blackfoot, Blackfire, Wasp, Exit, Red Earth, and Wilco, among many others, are Native American rock bands who carry the sounds and messages of native culture for all to bear witness to. Native American and indigenous culture is one that, at its core, perseveres and thrives against all odds. The very nature of rock and roll carries a similar fighting spirit, and thus has a culture of its own. From the very inception of rock music, we've seen native bands willing to express their worldview and cultural identity, and this raises the question, with indigenous culture and rock and roll sharing a similar stage, what does the future hold for these two groups and the confluence between them? Only time will tell.